Yo, what's up, guys? We're back for another breakdown and predictions video, and this year we got UFC Mexico City. It's going to be Brandon Moreno for the fourth time fighting in Mexico in the UFC, looking for his first win, taking on Steve Erceg. So a lot of pressure on him, and I'm sure that to end his illustrious UFC career, before he ends it, I don't know if he's near the end yet, he's 31, but he has to get a win in Mexico. So I think it's imperative he gets this one done, and it's a pretty good card throughout, so excited to break it down. And right before we get started, man, hit the like button, and let's try to get interaction on this video. I know I always say that, but let's try to get some more comments on here, man. Let's try to exchange some opinions. Tell me who your most confident picks are, what you're kind of leaning. Do you got upsets? Because on this card, personally, I'm seeing some underdogs that could do well, so I think I'm going to be taking some shots that maybe other people would be a little bit surprised with, but we'll see what happens. And let's break down this full card, man. So let's get into this first fight of the night here. And so kicking off the card, we got Austin Hubbard taking on MarQuel Medeiros. And Austin Hubbard was originally going to face Daniel Huber in this fight, or on this card, excuse me. And it was, in my opinion, a tougher fight in enemy territory, but Huber had to withdraw, and now he's still taking on a hard opponent with MarQuel Medeiros. And Medeiros was originally scheduled to fight March 15th, which that fight didn't end up happening, and he got to jump in here. So I think the fact he trains at elevation already made this decision to fight in Mexico on short notice easier for him, more than likely, and hopefully he looks good. He hasn't fought in over a year, so he probably has to get paid too. And Medeiros is 1-0 in the UFC, 7-fight win streak, so he's the prospect with the momentum entering this matchup. But Hubbard, 10 UFC fights at this point. He's 4-6. He is coming off a split decision loss. So for Medeiros, it's a chance to move into that top 25-ish range. And Hubbard's just trying to keep his UFC career going. But Austin Hubbard, experienced, well-rounded. On the feet, he's pretty evasive. He'll switch stances, nice counters. He feints well and tries to land that check hook or counter cross. And you'll throw front kicks, round kicks, knees. The issue is he just doesn't have power, and his 3 or 4 shots equal one hard shot of his opponent. And he has high volume to kind of try to counteract that. He also has good durability. He could take damage well, but seems like his durability is waning ever so slightly. And calf kicks, straight shots are kind of how you get to him on the feet. And that's really exactly what Marcos Medeiros brings. He's very dynamic. He likes to feint, land pull counters, good head movement, fast straight punches, good kicks, good knees. 3-2s, 2-3s are dangerous. I think he needs to work the leg kicks in here and be ready to exchange in the pocket and try to land a little bit heavier. And I think his speed is what is going to make the difference here. I see him being the faster fighter. Cardio is good, and he usually walks guys down and he doesn't get tired. So that should help him unless the elevation gets to him here, with him not knowing he was going to fight in elevation originally and having to take this fight on kind of short notice. But Hubbard, he will time takedowns. I feel like maybe he's going to try to wrestle here, but Medeiros has good takedown defense. He's strong. I think he's going to be hard to hold down even if he does get taken down. Sometimes he can clinch up a lot in his fights, so I would try to keep it a little more free-flowing here, but I'm going to go with Medeiros by decision. I just think he has the superior firepower, a little bit faster, more dynamic, and he has the coaches who coach Alexander Hernandez to victory over Hubbard in his corner. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is Medeiros just hasn't been super active. He isn't experienced, so that could bite him, but overall, I'm impressed, and I'm going to say Medeiros gets the victory. And keeping it rolling, the second fight on the card, we got Jamall Emmers versus Gabriel Miranda. Gabriel Miranda, 3 UFC fights so far, and to his credit, I mean, they've all been entertaining. He's 1-2 in those fights, yet to see the scorecard, so lost his debut to Benoit Saint Denis. That was short notice, so not too much shame there, and he did bounce back with a 59-second submission win, but last fight got knocked out for the second time in 3 UFC fights by Morgan Charrier, and I think his job could be on the line Saturday, so a win is paramount, or at least a good performance. And Jamall Emmers coming back, he hasn't fought in over a year. He got knocked out by Nate Landwehr's last fight, and it made him want to sit down, recover, reevaluate a little bit. He was on a nice little run before that loss, and he was coming off a really quick knockout win, so he was in a good point in his career, and it seemed like that was his kind of taking off fight, and he couldn't get over the hump. So he needs to kind of figure it out here and get this win in dominant fashion and try to get back into that top 15 mix quickly. But 35 years old now, I'm a little bit worried about mentally where Emmers is at this point, and if he's taking this fight seriously or he's just trying to cash out. But I feel like he has another run in him if he's still has the fire. We're just going to have to see. But he's a beast. I mean, Jamall Emmers at his best is very fast, long reach, nice feints. He walks guys down, and he'll throw some kicks out there, wait to pull counter. His head movement could be a little better, but he has great reflexes. So in boxing range, he'll slip and rip with jabs, nice straight punches, good offense in the clinch too with knees, elbows. And his wrestling ability is solid offensively and defensively. And in this fight, I think use the wrestling in reverse, keep it standing. Don't follow Miranda to the ground if he tries to pull guard, and don't try to take him down. And he isn't a slouch on the mat himself, though. I mean, he has decent grappling, but he's had fights like versus Pat Sabatini where he was the far better fighter on the feet. He dropped Sabatini and then ended up falling him to the ground and getting submitted. So he just needs to show evolution in his fight IQ, which has costed him in some fights, and he has been finished 5 times. So when you beat him, you usually have to knock him out or find the submission. He's 9-3 in decisions, and all 3 of those decision losses are splits too. And if you look at the 2 decisions he's had in the UFC that he lost to Giga Chikadze and Jack Jenkins, a lot of people felt like he won those fights. And Miranda, his opponent, is a guy that goes after it right away. He's much slower on the feet than Emmers, but he's wild. He'll use that to close the gap, and he does throw some straights, some left hooks, and he'll stab the front kicks. So you have to be aware on the feet, but I think he's going to be at a huge speed disadvantage here and likely is only going to be dangerous for a short period of time. He has subpar wrestling, but he really commits hard early. He'll even pull guard. So if he can get you down, he's going to try to gun for the back and find the choke. And he got a rear naked choke in 59 seconds for Shane Young in his one UFC victory. And his record is pretty crazy. 16 submission wins. 14 of the 16 have been in the first round. He also has 1 knockout win, which is also in the first round. So he has 15 first-round finishes, and 13 of his submission wins came in under a minute and 30 seconds. So he's blitzing these guys out of there most of the time when he wins. He's only 2-7 in fights that have gone past the first round, 0-4 in decisions, and he's been finished early in round 2 in both of his UFC losses. So I think if Moreno can't finish him early, especially with this fight being at such high elevation, I think he's going to get tired, get stopped. And, you know, he's had moments in all his fights. Like, he took down Benoit, and he was able to take the back of Morgan Charrier at some point. So I feel he might have one chance to win this fight, and if he gets the win, it's going to be a finish. But if he doesn't, I think he's going to kind of teeter out and get finished late round 1 or in round 2, and Emmers is going to knock him out. So my prediction is going to be Jamall Emmers by knockout. And the next fight we got on the card is at 155 pounds between Rafa Garcia and Vinc Pichel. And don't have a long breakdown or a ton to say about this one. I feel like Vinc Pichel, super vet at this point. He's very old, like 42 years old. So I get him being a gigantic underdog. It's just with Rafa Garcia, I think he's a really solid fighter. He could mix it up, and he's good, but I just don't see a lot of value in him at that price. I mean, if you want to parlay him up and, you know, have some fun with a few parlays on the card, I don't think he's the worst guy to use because I do think he can hit takedowns, and I think he's probably just going to be a little bit faster, sharper, more active on the feet. You know, Vinc Pichel is crafty, and we've seen Garcia kind of get tired in fights previously. But I just don't really see it for Vinc. I mean, he is powerful, but he's not someone that goes out there and gets a lot of finishes with strikes very often. And he looked decent in his last fight, but I just feel like the age is catching up to him. And I just think that Garcia is going to be more active on the feet. He's going to be able to land more. He's going to be able to come forward and kind of dictate it because he can get the takedowns. And Pichel, I think, needs a finish to get the win. I don't see him winning over 15 minutes. Garcia's a tough guy to beat via decision. And ultimately, I just think Garcia is going to win this fight. But the odds aren't the best. So kind of a pass fight for me. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Garcia. And the first female fight we got on the card between Lupita Godínez and Julia Polastri is up next year. And it's a good one. I mean, both these girls, I feel like, are kind of middling at this point. Lupi's taking a big step back in competition, kind of resetting after back-to-back losses versus girls in the top 10. And she's 7-5 in the UFC. She's had some really good performances, but just has not gotten over the hump yet. 31 years old, kind of a crossroads fight for her. And Polastri, she had a really good showing in her last fight. She won. It was a split decision against Corey McKenna, but I felt it was a clear win for her, and she's a former LFA champion, 1-1 in the UFC, so she has a chance to skyrocket up the rankings here with the victory over someone like Lupi. She was going to fight Yasmin Hargui, which is just as hard of a fight, but probably with a little less upside, so I'm sure that Polastri's happy to get a name like Lupita Godínez across from her. And she's a fun fighter to watch. I mean, she comes to go to war and find that finish. She has 7 finishes, so that's usually not normal for female 115ers. And on the feet, she, has a nice jab. And when she can move forward, she looks good. She'll throw hard kicks. She has nice straight punch combinations, really good in the clinch. But defensively, she tends to shell up or just back up in straight lines when you throw strikes at her. So if you pressure her and throw combinations, you can land, especially if you're going to the body or ending with kicks. And you could throw strikes on her and then mix in the takedowns, which I think is kind of what Lupi's going to do. She's going to pressure with boxing combinations, get Polastri to shell and then try to get the takedown. And if Polastri can defend the takedowns and then use that to work her clinch game and kind of do some damage to Lupi and then eventually be the girl that's pressing forward and getting her kicks off, then she's going to have a relatively decent chance to win this fight. But I just think that Lupi's going to get it on her legs and be able to get the takedowns, just be a little bit stronger. And even if there's maybe not a ton of action from her on top and it's more just controlling, I think she's going to be able to do enough of that controlling and pressuring on the feet with their hands to win over 15 minutes. Polastri, I think, will have some moments, but I'm going to say Lupita Godínez wins a decision. And up next, we got an awesome fight, man. I'm really looking forward to this one between Christian Rodriguez and Costa. And I'm going to need your guys' help on this one, though, because this is a fight that I don't have the best read on. So tell me who you guys think is going to win this fight between Rodriguez and Costa and why. And, if you're super confident, I definitely want to hear why. But I think it's going to be a really fun fight regardless. I mean, two guys that are starting the year out blazing. I mean, both these guys already fought and won this year. Christian Rodriguez, he took another prospect 0. He decisioned Austin Bashi. And Costa just ran through and submitted Andre Fili in the first round in a super impressive performance. And C-Rod, he fought in January, and Costa just fought February 22nd, so he's coming back pretty quickly. And the winner of this fight should definitely get a top 15 matchup next, I believe, especially if it's Christian Rodriguez. But different look than normal for Rodriguez. The majority of his UFC fights have been against wrestlers who've tried to go in there and take him down, and he did have the fight with Julian Erosa, but in that fight he ended up being submitted, and there wasn't a ton of stand-up. It was less than 5 minutes. This fight, we hopefully will finally get to see Rodriguez flowing on the feet a little bit more, But he's a really good grappler. I mean, his stand-up looks solid. He has a great jab, loose hands, picks his shots well. He has nice combinations, goes body-head. We just don't really see it a lot. I mean, I think in this fight, the jabs, the 1-2s, mixing in the check hooks, his elbows, knees, could come into play a little bit more. And he's super sharp and technical. He is the most powerful fighter, but he's high volume, and he throws stinging enough punches that you could tell that fighters can feel it, and super fast. But I think if you could take his power and kind of give it back and make it a little bit more of a dirty fight, he can wither a little bit over time. He's going to land some really nasty strikes in between. His clinch work is really good, but if you could keep that pressure on and kind of stay in his face, I think that's how you get to him on the feet. But his scrambling ability is proven to be elite. If you could take him down, it's going to be really difficult to control him. He's a master at giving the back and then turning in and getting on top. And his grappling cardio is amazing. He's been able to gas out wrestlers time after time. This fight with Costa, I don't really see him have to deal with a lot of takedowns. I think it's a way different fight. Maybe even you could see Rodriguez mixing in the wrestling in this one potentially. But honestly, I think it's going to be much more of a stand-up battle. The one fight where Rodriguez was caught in the UFC was versus Arosa, and Arosa hit a really nice guillotine, and we just saw Costa get a guillotine on Andre Fili, so that has to be something that Christian Rodriguez has to be weary of going in here. And with Melky Costa on the feet, the guy is very good with the distance control. He bounces in and out really well. Nasty kicks. He could switch stance and throw kicks seamlessly from both stances. Really fast straight punches and check hooks. And he just looks to keep it long, batter your body with kicks, batter your leg with kicks, kind of beat you up with that battle of attrition. And then if he can get you to overreact or kind of run into a strike, he can knock you out and finish you. And his grappling is getting a lot better as well. Even though his wrestling might not be the greatest and he can get taken down, he's showing in the fight with Shylin, Nerdy, and Becky that he was able to come back from behind, and he was able to submit a good wrestler, take his back, and hit a rear naked choke. And then he got the nice guillotine on Andre Fili after kind of hurting him on the feet a little bit. So I think Costa is definitely the more dangerous of the two guys. It's just if he's going to be able to deal with the striking technicality and boxing on the front foot in the later periods of the fight with Rodriguez, because with his style, throwing a lot of kicks, moving a lot, he could get tired. And I think Rodriguez should try to clinch and use clinch knees, clinch elbows, and maybe try to just make it grimy early and slow Costa down a little bit. But, man, I see this as really like a 50-50 fight. I feel like it's going to be a stand-up fight, and Costa has more weapons, but he could wear down if Rodriguez comes with the correct game plan. And we really haven't seen Rodriguez's striking enough to, at least I haven't, against someone at this level to make a big determination how much better or worse he's going to be on the feet than Costa. But I just really like what I saw from Melky versus Andre Fili, and I think that he can keep it rolling here. So I'm going to say he edges this one in a really close competitive decision. I think it's going to be a great fight, but I'm going to lean with the slight underdog here with Costa. And up next here, I mean, man, this is a tough one. We got your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, Jose Medina, coming back, taking on Abita Gautier. And I think the line's way off on this one. I don't get how Gautier could be such a huge favorite. We just saw Jose Medina once again take just a fucking insane amount of damage against Zach Reese, go 15 full minutes. And this Ateba Gautier guy, I mean, he's fought nobody, and he's someone that goes in there and runs people over early. And we've already seen one time when he was fighting a guy that was lower level than Daniel Medina gas out and lose a decision to that guy. So I just think the line should be a lot closer. I'm not saying that Medina should be the favorite or anything, but I don't think Gautier should be minus 400. On the feet, obviously, Gautier is going to be a lot better. He's very athletic and explosive. He'll throw really nice straight punches. Fairly technical offense, and he's powerful, but opens up, gets wild, and if you shoot takedowns on him, he's very willing to reverse you and get on top. And I feel like if he doesn't finish on top when he engages in a lot of this wrestling and grappling, he gets very tired, and we've seen that in a couple of his fights. His last fight, he did get controlled for a lot of that first round, but came back and got the finish in the second, so that was good to see. A little bit improved cardio, but it wasn't a super long fight or super high-paced fight. And Medina is someone that could really take a lot of damage and stay in there. And on the feet, I don't think he's really going to bring much. I mean, maybe a counter hook he can land and sneak in there if Ateba is really tired or he doesn't see it. He could hurt him. But I feel like on the feet, he's going to be at a big disadvantage. But I think he could absorb probably what Gotti is going to throw at him and hang in there. And I see him trying to mix in the takedowns. And if he can get a takedown and get on top, we saw Zach Reese use jiu-jitsu to reverse Medina when he took him down in their fight. That's not going to happen with Gotti. I feel like if he takes him down, he's going to be able to control him and probably do some damage on top. That's why he's got a lot of his finishes outside the UFC versus these regional Peruvian guys that he was able to defeat. Bolivian, excuse me, but I think that he's also training with the better training camp as well, Medina, and he's going to be used to the elevation and training out there in South America. I think he's training in elevation in South America, or he might even be training in Mexico at Entrum or something, but I know he's training at elevation, whereas I think that Gotti is training out there in Dubai, so he's going to have a long flight, and we're going to see how he's going to be able to adjust and everything like that. I just feel like I'm going to say Medina wins this fight, man. I'm going to go with Medina via second or third round finish on the ground, but yeah, I think it's a clear dog or pass, and maybe a fight you want a live bet. Potentially, I mean, maybe Gautier could be the first guy to go out there and take Medina out, but I just can't trust him to win a decision over 15 minutes at that price tag. And when you give me that line, as a pick, I'm just going to say Medina. And in this next fight, we got two flyweights that definitely need to win here. Chairez, he lost his last fight, and CJ Vergara has lost his last two, but they're still fun guys to watch. I mean, Edgar Chairez, big flyweight, he's dangerous early, 8 first-round stoppages, and his one win in the UFC was in the first round as well. Clearly, he slows down after one, though. He's 3-6 in fights that have gone past round 1. He's 0-4 in decisions. He's really dangerous when he can keep you on the outside. He has long arms. He has good snap on his punches. He'll throw a really nice jab. His lead hook is nasty. Fast 1-2s, good 3-2s. His kicks are good. Nice round kicks, front kicks, and hard leg kicks. In order to beat him, I think you have to stay safe early and then be patient. Force Chairez to go first and counter his kicks or his jabs and use that to get inside and then let combinations off. After Josh Van kind of figured that out, he pretty much dominated on the inside, and he did get rocked one time with a crazy spinning back fist. And Chairez is a tough guy, but he just got outclassed by Josh Van. And his volume goes down after the first, and he isn't the best at landing the backhand moving backwards. So I feel like if you could pressure Chairez, you can get to him, and you can also mix in level changes. He has a really dangerous guillotine, but if you can navigate the guillotine in his guard, you can hold him down and beat him in that manner. And you look at CJ Vergara, decent all-rounder. On the feet, he could fight going forward or backwards. I think to use his footwork and movement early, make Chairez chase him and miss punches, throw a lot of kicks is what he should do. And he's coming off his first knockout loss, which was a body kick. So I'm not too worried about him taking damage, but if he can make Chairez expend a lot of energy chasing him, I think he has a good shot to win. Once Chairez is a bit more tired, Vergara can come in with that lead hook. His body head combinations in the pocket, where I think he's the better pocket fighter. And I think he's going to be nasty if he can get in a clinch and work his knees, elbows there. He has to be aware of the submissions, but I think if he could time a takedown and get on top and work his ground and pound, he could do some big damage. And cardio should be an advantage for Vergara. If Vergara had been knocked out cold or something in his last fight, I'd be a little bit more worried about him. But it was a body shot that ended it, and I think he's still going to be durable. I just see him having better conditioning, and I think he's going to be doing more in the later rounds. If you look at Vergara's resume, I think he's beaten fighters who are long-rangey, somewhat similar to Chairez. Chairez, to me, doesn't really have many great wins, and he obviously isn't great after the first round. So I just think this line is way too wide, personally. I think it should be a lot closer to a pick'em than with Chairez at over 3-1. So I'm going to say CJ Vergara wins this fight via decision. And kicking off the main card, we got one of the most popular Mexican fighters in the UFC, Lazy Boy Ronaldo Rodriguez, taking on Kevin Borjas. And this should be an all-action fight. I mean, Lazy Boy, he's going to have to bring the violence on the feet and use that to get the takedowns here. So he can't stay on the outside, and it's not going to be a boring fight because Borjas, really nice 1-2s. He keeps it long. He'll throw the straight punches. He'll end his combinations with the check hooks. And pretty good pop on his punches. I don't think he has like crazy knockout power. I definitely think like Ode Osborne, for instance, was a lot heavier of a hitter. But Borjas is sharp and he keeps it clean and he throws some nice combinations with the hands. And on the outside, he's going to be the way better striker. I mean, he's going to be throwing straighter. He's going to have the tighter, faster hands. And Lazy Boy is a guy that just throws a lot of wild looping strikes. And he has decent speed with his feet. So he can kind of slip and rip and close the gap really fast. But his striking is wild. And we saw him get almost knocked unconscious early his last fight, running into a straight. And he's going to have to figure out how to close that gap and get it to the ground. Because I feel like if he can get on the legs and get the takedown, I think he can get the submission here. I feel like there's a big gap with the grappling. I think that Rodriguez has really solid grappling. We've seen him get taken down in reverse guys, and we've seen him on top hit submissions. You have seen in the career of Kevin Borjas, he's been submitted via rear naked choke twice, once as an amateur, once as a pro. And I just think that if Lazy Boy gets the back, he could submit him here in this spot. And I think on the feet, Borjas is going to be dangerous, but I don't know if he has the power to put Rodriguez away. And I think Rodriguez is going to be willing to wane into that fire and absorb damage to get the takedown. And I feel like I trust him more to get the fight to the ground and get the submission than I do Borjas to get the knockout. I think that Borjas maybe is going to start really well, but I think that if he can't get the finish early, he's eventually going to wear down just a little bit. You're going to see Lazy Boy start to be able to back him up and get his back near the fence more and more, and then I think he's going to be able to take him down and submit him. So I'm going to go with Rodriguez via second round rear naked choke. And this next fight, David Martinez versus Saimon Oliveira. Really looking forward to this matchup here, man. I think this is a under-the-radar fight that's going to be a banger. David Martinez, Contender Series guy. He looked good versus Xavier Franklin. He was able to go in there, fight someone that he was evenly lined with by the bookies, but pretty much dominate over 3 rounds. He implemented his style as well and showed off his skill set. He used his range. He threw his kicks. He hit and got hit. And he's taken on Saimon Oliveira, who's an older veteran coming back from a layoff here. He hasn't fought in a while. And he hasn't done well in the UFC. Fought Daniel Marcos, took a loss there. Fought Tony Gravely, took a loss there. And those two guys are really good fighters, but still looking for his first victory in the octagon. And this guy's someone that's fought all over the world. He is experienced, and I think he's a pretty darn good fighter overall. But you look at Martinez, like I said, his style is pretty one-dimensional, but it's very good. He has great distance control. He throws a lot of really nasty kicks. He has good footwork, and he moves around the cage. He darts in and out with long punches. He throws a lot of side kicks and round kicks and spin kicks, and he's just looking to touch you or run you into a big shot and knock you out and get the job done on points, or just ending it with a big crazy strike. So that's kind of what he looks to do. And then his takedown defense is decent. I'm not too sure about it. I mean, that's something that's to be determined still. We've seen him defend takedowns in certain fights and look like he looks fairly strong, but I don't think he's really fought someone that was that relentless trying to take him down, or really a great wrestler or anything like that. And in this fight, that's the test that Saimon Oliveira is going to put him to, because Saimon Oliveira, in my opinion, is getting underrated here in this spot. I feel like he's a very live underdog. He's fought and defeated a lot of really good opponents, and even the guys that he's been in there with in the UFC, I mean, he had a super competitive portions of the fight with Daniel Marcos where he was doing really well. And yeah, he ended up getting finished. But look where Marcos is at in the division at this point. And with Tony Gravely, he also had some really nice moments in that one. So I think that Saimon Oliveira is underrated. I feel like his style potentially could work nicely here, because he's an all on the gas, super pressure fighter. He shoots a ton of takedowns, and he has good wrestling, but then on the feet, even though his striking isn't polished, he's wild, he's durable, he's good at exchanging in the pocket and finding punches, and he's going to pressure you and take a shot to give a shot. And I think that in this matchup, if he comes in good shape where he could wrestle, keep Martinez's back, on or near the fence, and maybe explode on him, land some nice punches, catch Martinez, trying to exit to one side or the other, and, just stay on him and stay more active, I think he could steal this one and get the win. And I think he has a great chance to get a submission early as well, potentially. I mean, the guy's guillotine is extremely dangerous. He has so many guillotines, and I just think he's fought better opponents. And the only thing that I'm worried about is the cardio, because if he goes out there early, maybe is doing well and gets it to the ground, almost gets the choke, but he fails on it, and then goes for a couple more takedowns that he is unsuccessful with, is he going to be able to keep the pace, or is he going to really slow down and Martinez is just going to move around him and throw kicks and land and attack his body and just steal the fight that way? So that's what I'm worried about, but man, I think the odds are off. I get Oliveira's a little older. I get that he's going to be coming in here off a layoff, but I think Martinez is unproven here. This is a potential chance for a fraud check for Saimon Oliveira. I think he can mix in, get takedowns. I think he could be wild on the feet, and I think in exchanges he's going to be very dangerous in the pocket. And for Martinez, he's going to have to keep it at range and kick and move for all 3 rounds, which is his game, but I think it might be a little harder said than done. And I could see Oliveira going in there and snatching the neck in a submission win early, or winning a decision by just doing more overall for 15 minutes. So I'm going to slightly lean with the underdog here and go with Oliveira. And we got Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Vince Morales in this one in a very favorable matchmaking, in my opinion, for Raul Rosas Jr. Vince Morales just fought, man. And he took a lot of damage. He broke his nose, I believe, or at least busted his nose pretty good in that fight with Elijah Smith. He took the loss. It went the full 15 minutes. They were going back and forth hard. So really short notice turnaround for him to take on Raul Rosas Jr. in Mexico. And, I mean, it's not like he has no chance, because on the feet, I do think Morales, even though Rosas is probably the more powerful guy that could maybe catch Morales, more than likely Morales is going to be able to pressure and use his boxing and be the superior striker if this was a stand-up fight. But we all know Raul Rosas is going to be one-track minded, and that's going to be to get the fight to the ground. I think he's going to be able to hit the takedowns fairly easily here, and it's going to come down to if Vince Morales can use that grappling game to create a lot of scrambles and get Raul Rosas tired and then catch a choke, or is he going to get choked out or just grind it out over 3 rounds like he did against Elijah Smith again. And I kind of think that Raul Rosas Jr. is going to take him down here, get his back, and get the neck here. I think he's going to choke him out. I just feel like it's not a good time for Morales to be taking this fight after just having that last hard fight. And I think that Raul Rosas Jr. going to be able to take him down, and that's what Raul Rosas Jr. wants to do to everyone. I don't think Fitzgerald is going to be able to stop it, and I think he's going to be able to take the back and choke him out. Maybe Morales can surprise me and use his veteran savvy to get the job done, but I got Raul Rosas first round submission. And up next year, kind of like the Vinc Pichel fight, this is one that don't really got a lot of interest in it from a betting perspective. Obviously, two fun guys to watch with Kelvin Gastelum and Joe Pyfer, two noticeable names, but Kelvin is a huge underdog coming back up to 85s, and just with where his career is, and Pyfer, big favorite, looking good, been running through people again since his loss to Hermanson, and it's possible that he goes out there and takes down and submits Gastelum early, but I just don't think he's going to, I don't want to say he's not going to justify the price tag, because I am going to pick him and I think he can win pretty dominantly, but I just think Kelvin, southpaw, if he can pressure, get on the inside and defend a couple takedowns, land some big punches. We've seen Pyfer wilt before and get tired, and in Mexico City, I just don't trust him enough, honestly, where he is at the money line, but maybe a submission win for Pyfer, I think, is potentially there, because we've seen Kelvin against these big guys get taken down and kind of wear down and get submitted. We just saw Sean Brady submit him. I mean, Brady looked amazing versus Leon Edwards. His grappling is top-notch, so I don't know if you could really surmise so much out of that, but we've seen it with, like, Chris Weidman. We saw it with a couple other guys, I believe, as well, that have submitted Kelvin. But Pyfer could also just double leg him and take him down and control him as well, laying ground and pound. But I think if he gets out there and gets in a slugfest and starts testing his machismo with Gastelum, that's where it could get shaky, because Gastelum, he could catch him or he could get him tired and take over. But the thing is, man, I don't trust Gastelum's cardio to be good either. And ultimately, I just think that Joe Pyfer is the bigger guy, way more physical. He's going to be able to get the takedowns. I think he's going to be hungrier. And, Kelvin out his time, man, and he never quite dedicated himself to be as great as he could be, but he's still been phenomenal. I just think that Pyfer is going to get the job done here. Co-main event time, we got an all-action fight between Manuel Torres and Drew Dober. And both these guys, they're known to knock someone out, and man, this is going to be a great matchup here. Manuel Torres, he just got his lights put out by Ignacio Bahamondes pretty badly, so I think he might come in here and fight a little bit smarter, hopefully. And Drew Dober, even though he's tied for the most knockouts in lightweight history, he's trying to get one more knockout and pass Dustin Poirier and become first solely. But I feel like he's been definitely slowing down a little bit recently, and just slowing down in terms of his speed in general in the octagon. I think he's a lot more deliberate and a lot more smarter in how he's been fighting. So I could see this fight going longer than people anticipate, honestly. But you look at Manuel Torres, all his fights except for one have ended in the first round. So most of the time he goes out there and does do the business early. He likes to be really explosive, and he walks forward, he feints, and he tries to get you a little bit lulled, like off rhythm, and then explode in with really fast, powerful punches from odd angles, and he could catch you and hurt you. He also has a good ability to mix in elbows and laying counters and things like that are really nasty, like we saw versus Moda. And his grappling looks pretty solid as well. So the guy looks like a good fighter. I feel like he's going to have a huge speed advantage in this fight, and he's going to be longer. So I think if he fights a little smarter and, moves around, darts in, darts out, uses the straight punches, doesn't get as wild and open up as much, he could be really effective on the feet here. The leg kicks, I think, for Dober are going to be something that he needs to try to use. And then just effective pressure, obviously, and just trying to eat shots and just keep the pressure on Torres, because Torres could potentially fade. I feel like Dober is going to be the one that's going to have the better cardio. But Drew Dober recently, like I said, I feel like he's looked a lot slower with his hands. But he likes to walk you down, cut the cage off, kind of stay right at the end of range, maybe attack the body, chop the legs a little bit. And then when you throw, he likes to slip and come back with a big pull 2 or a 3-2, 1-2 combination and try to hit you hard and knock you out. And super durable guy, hard guy to take down. If you do take him down, his grappling, isn't necessarily the greatest. And I do think Torres has a chance to submit him if he gets him on the map. But on the feet, Dober's going to be bringing that pressure. And he doesn't commit as much, though, anymore. I feel like he's a lot more counter heavy. And that hurt his style, man, because his ability previously to say kind of screw it and go into the fire and go first got him a lot of knockouts. And now that he's hanging back and trying to maybe preserve his chin or fight smarter than slip and rip, and his pressure is really good, but he's getting a little slower and these guys are touching him before he can land back, and he's taking more damage and he's not being as barbaric and finding these knockouts. But with Torres, I think that he needs to respect that Drew Dober has an insane chin, great power, and that he knows that Dober's going to be putting the pressure on, walking him down and being right in front of him. So he just needs to be a little smarter, straighten up those punches, use his speed a little bit more, use the kicks, maybe even try to mix in a level change or two. And I think that Torres could use that striking to extend the fight and then maybe land on Dober when they're both a little more tired and hurt him at that point, and then catch a submission or maybe even, win on points. But I think Dober has a chance to win later. So I really think this fight could go either way, but I kind of like the over in this fight. I feel like plus 160 is a decent price, but I'm going to go with Manuel Torres here. But this is another one of my least confident picks on the card. And finally, we got the main event. We got the former champ, Brandon Moreno, trying to get his first win in Mexico and his 4th try in the UFC, taking on Steve Erceg, who has lost his last 2 in a row and desperately needs this win. This is a huge fight for both guys. I think it's a bigger fight for Erceg because obviously Moreno's already cemented his legacy, but even more so, I think Moreno with the loss here, he is a big name. He could get another main event fight next if he wanted it, if he lost this fight, or a big fight on a pay-per-view. For Steve Erceg, it would be his 3rd loss in a row to a top contender or champion at flyweight, and 3 losses in a row at flyweight. I don't think he would be cut, but it would take a lot for him to get back in the mix and be in the title picture. But if he beats Brandon Moreno, man, he's right back in there right away. So both these guys with the win are going to be in the mix, and a loss, they're going to be set back quite a bit. But I think for Steve Erceg, it's definitely a bigger fight. But stylistically, man, I think this fight tends to favor Brandon Moreno, honestly. I mean, Erceg to win, I think he has to mix in the kicks or try to pressure and clinch and use his elbows and his knees, because in terms of boxing, I just think Moreno's going to have the edge in the pocket. Erceg has really nasty straight punches, and if he connects that straight right or the 3-2, or he could find the timing on the jab and to intercept Moreno, he could definitely land heavy. But we've seen Moreno fight so many guys with really nice straight punches down the middle that have big power, and he's been able to navigate it. He's been able to eat their power and absorb it and come back with his own. And I just feel like in the pocket, Steve Erceg, he exits in straight lines. He has his chin in the air a little bit. That's how Kai Kara was able to catch him. That's how even guys like Matt Schnell, Alessandro Costa were able to catch him as well. And I feel like Moreno, he has that style where he's going to hang back. He's going to move around a lot. He has abnormally long arms for the weight. I think his height, they say he's 5'7". I don't really feel that he is, but he does have long arms. And he's able to hang back and then throw those big looping shots over the top. And then if he feels you getting a little tired, he's going to put the pressure on you, put the jab on you, start to come in with hard combinations and that big body kick and try to get you out of there. And I think that his movement is going to be successful versus Steve Erceg. I think it's going to mute a lot of Erceg's offense. And unless Erceg can cut him off with kicks, land calf kicks, land head kicks, then I think he's going to struggle to really get his hands going, because Moreno's going to switch stance. He's going to move laterally. It's going to make it hard to land the jab. And I think that he's going to be landing shots over the top and counters and just being a little more active than Erceg and a little more effective. And I think that obviously Erceg maybe could try to mix it up, but I don't see him being able to hold Moreno down. I don't think he's going to be able to just beat him up in the clinch. I just see Moreno coming in here and getting a finish, honestly. I think he can land and hurt Erceg and submit him, or finish him off with big punches and ground and pound. And I got the champ inside the distance in this main event. So Brandon Moreno, I'll say third or fourth round finish is going to be my prediction in this fight. So there you have it, guys. It's a full card breakdown and predictions for UFC Mexico City. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you learned something. But if you want access to my bets for this card, you want access to breakdowns from other promotions, and for bets for other promotions and just other content in general, go to patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. The link's going to be in the description. I would really appreciate it. And like I said at the top of the video, hit the like button, put a comment down below. The fights that I said that I was not as confident in, if you have a confident read, tell me who you picked and why. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, man, as far as the play of the week, I'm going to say Saimon Oliveira will be the play of the week for me. I think if you go on him, you could have a nice little payday there. And my most confident pick, I'll say Raul Rosas Jr. If I had to give a parlay, I guess I would say Moreno and Rosas Jr. as the parlay. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. And I'll be back soon doing another breakdown prediction video. So peace out, guys.